Hey, what's up, Ocarina of Time speedrunners? So welcome to the very first video of my Ocarina of Time speedrunning tutorial series. So the topic for this video is widely considered to be one of the most basic and fundamental glitches in Ocarina of Time, and it is the Infinite Sword Glitch, or ISG, as I'll call it from now on. ISG is the result of performing a crouch stab and interrupting the stab just before it ends by one of a few different means. It causes the game to not properly change your weapon back from a swinging to a neutral state, so you end up being able to deal damage as if you were still swinging on every single frame for as long as ISG remains active. Sound useful? Well, it is, and in many more ways than you would imagine at first. ISG is a building block in many intricate sequences of glitches, but I'll cover some of those later. For now, the basics. How much damage does ISG do per frame? This question actually leads me to one of my favorite coincidences in the whole game. On each frame, ISG will deal damage equal to the damage dealt by the crouch stab you used to initiate ISG. Makes sense, after all it's just a stab that never got the chance to end properly. But the beauty in this comes from the fact that crouch stabs can deal as much damage as you want, because of what's called power crouch stabbing. In the internal damage tables that the game uses to keep track of what attacks deal what damage types and amounts, stabbing was never assigned its own properties. It defaults to one sword type damage, but the moment you perform any sword, stick, or hammer attack, all crouch stabs performed with any weapon after that will use the type and value of the last attack you used. For example, if I do a jump slash, which is the most powerful attack, to deal 4 damage with a Deku stick, all subsequent stabs, whether it's with a sword or a stick, will do 4 damage until I use a different type of attack. And so if you get ISG with one of those 4 damage stabs, that ISG will deal 4 damage on every frame. That's overpowered as hell, and it turns plenty of fights into a complete joke. What weapons can be used to get ISG? The only prerequisite to getting ISG is the ability to crouch stab. Therefore, you need a shield to crouch, of course, and something to stab with. Therefore, Deku sticks, Kokiri sword, Master sword, Giant's knife, Begoron's sword, Broken Giant's knife, and the Megaton hammer can all be used to initiate ISG. But how do you do ISG? Alright, now we're at the good stuff. There are actually a ton of ways to get ISG, but I'll go through them all. Remember that ISG happens when you interrupt a crouch stab on the last frame. The interruption can be a variety of things, and one of the most common ones is a text box. Stand in front of an object that Link can read or speak to with the A button. Perform a stab by holding shield and pressing B. Then press A to bring up the text box on the last frame of the stab as shown. If you press A early, nothing will happen. And if you press it late, the text box will come up after the stab has already ended, and so you won't have ISG. Any means of bringing up a text box will work as well, not just speaking and reading with the A button. You can use Navi's enemy text box or passive text box as well. Stand within targeting range of an enemy, hold shield and press B to stab. Then quickly press target to lock onto the enemy and press C up to speak to Navi on the last frame of the stab. The same can be done with Navi's passive quest advice messages, except there's no need to target for those. And as for timing, the same rules apply from before. If you press C up early to bring up the text box, nothing will happen. And if you press it late, the text box will come up after the stab has already ended, and so you won't have ISG. The other way to get ISG with a text box is to bring up a text box passively during your stab. The simplest way to do this is to stab and pick up a new item drop for the first time. This is probably the easiest way to get ISG in the whole game, and likely happened to plenty of casual players at some point. You can also YOLO a stab at an item drop directly on the ground, or at an environmental text box. Another type of crouch stab interruption comes in the form of lifting objects or opening treasure chests. Stand in front of any object that Link can attempt to lift so that the A button says grab. It doesn't matter if it's too heavy for Link to lift with his current strength upgrade. Hold shield, press B to stab, and then A to lift on the final frame of the stab as shown. This is easiest to do with bombs because the stab doesn't affect the bombs, whereas in the case of bushes or pots, you have to be very careful to stab to the side of the object so that it's still intact to lift a few frames later. Note again that if you press A to lift too early, nothing will happen, and if you press it too late, you'll begin lifting after the stab has already ended, and so you won't have ISG. This all applies to ISG via opening treasure chests too. Just stand in front of one and press A on the last frame of stabbing to open the chest and get ISG that way. The last two ways to get ISG stand apart as a pair of oddballs. The first one is called damage ISG, and it happens when your crouch stab is interrupted by, unsurprisingly, damage hitting Link's shield. However, the damage alone isn't enough. You'll notice here that Link's sword maintains the signature ISG glow effect for a short while after the damage hits the shield, but then it dies. If you press C up to enter first person mode though, you can prevent the state from ending and achieve a normal ISG. It should be noted that this type of ISG requires the shield to be in a defensive state, so you cannot do this with Deka Stick, Giant's Knife, Begoron Sword, or Megaton Hammer, since those weapons require two hands and Link's shield doesn't go up while crouching with these items active. And the last way to get ISG is called Death ISG, and it happens in a very specific circumstance. If Link is sufficiently far into a jump slash, such that his sword is actually glowing, and he dies mid-air, and he acquires health in the form of a heart before he hits the ground to initiate the death, then when he does hit the ground, he will have ISG and be alive. This can be done by setting up a convoluted scenario with hearts and bombs or enemy damage, but it's most commonly done by finding one of the enemy pots that deal a quarter heart of damage, and also contain a heart inside. If Link has a quarter heart of health, such that the enemy pot kills him mid-air during a jump slash, and then also imparts the heart to him to immediately restore one heart of health, he'll land on the ground, have one heart of health, and have ISG. How can you determine whether you have ISG? The most obvious indicator is something we've already mentioned. Check out Link's sword. It will constantly have the same glowing after image present when you swing it normally. However, with some methods of ISG, like lifting objects, Link will put away his sword. In these cases, you can backflip and press B mid-air to draw the sword and check to see if you have ISG. Ideally though, you'll learn what ISG looks like through more subtle means that don't waste time to check. When Link puts away his sword during some methods of ISG, you'll be able to notice the flash of the typical ISG glow while the sword is being sheathed. Compare that to a failed attempt without ISG. Additionally, the camera's behavior will be much different while ISG is active. Normally, the camera smoothly turns to follow Link wherever he goes. However, during ISG, the camera movement is coarse and resistant to rotation, so it's easy to make Link run nearly entirely off screen. Also, when you target while ISG is active, the screen will remain letterboxed even after releasing target. This lasts until an event occurs to unlock the camera, such as targeting something with Navi, ending ISG, or getting stuck on a ledge. So now we know all about how to get ISG. How about losing it? ISG is a fairly fickle glitch and can be lost in many ways. Some of them are as follows. Swinging any weapon that has the capability to get ISG. Note that this doesn't have to be the weapon that you got ISG with, as ISG transfers between all sword-type weapons while it's active. Crouching with shield. You can hold shield while you have ISG by targeting while shielding. You just can't let Link crouch down. Entering water. Taking any damage which pushes Link. You can prevent being pushed and losing ISG by running while the damage hits you. If you're standing still, that's when the damage will push you and you'll lose ISG that way. Opening a vertically sliding door, as opposed to those that have doorknobs which do not kill ISG. Dying. Voiding out. Entering a loading zone. Or performing a climbing animation in which Link jumps up to reach an edge. Climbing smaller ledges, though, allows you to keep ISG. So the last topic I want to talk about is some results and effects of ISG that go beyond simply having your sword hitbox constantly active. One, which is easy to notice, is that Link will get stuck whenever you try to jump or fall off a ledge. If you want to jump down from somewhere, you can just turn and side hop or backflip off the ledge. This is actually pretty useful in some cases, since you can much more easily get Link much closer to the edge of a platform than you could without ISG. In some instances, this tiny extra distance can help a lot for reaching far targets. Another major result of ISG is the ability to hover mid-air. Hovering is extremely useful and can be chained in order to reach new heights much earlier than you're supposed to. I'll publish a video all about hovering in the future, but for now, knowing that ISG is a prerequisite is enough for the scope of this video. So that's it, everything you need to know about ISG in one video. So this is the first video of this caliber that I've done on this channel. My hope is that I'll eventually have a large library of videos like this one, explaining lots of different tricks and glitches and concepts in Ocarina of Time. It may be slow going, but if you like the way this series seems like it could turn out, then please drop a follow and tune in for more videos. Thanks for watching.